Zhang Xueliang has been assassinated by the Empire of Japan. The Japanese failed to replace him with a puppet to exert control over Manchuria. But will they stop there? Welcome back to the Pacific War channel, where we covered the entire history of the Asia-Pacific War from 1937 all the way up to 1945, and all the major events that led up to it. And before we jump into this episode, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments down below what you want to hear more about in the future. But without further ado, this is the Mukden Incident. It's Ishiwara's War. After the failed attempt to seize control over Manchuria by assassinating Zhang Xueliang during the Mukden Incident, Emperor Hirohito dismissed Prime Minister Tanaka Geichi for his inability to prosecute the low-ranking officers responsible. However, the next year, Hirohito privately condoned the army's cover-up of the incident, thereby encouraging further acts of military defiance. Ringleader Colonel Komoto Daisuke was forced to resign from his post as senior staff officer. He was replaced with Lieutenant Colonel Ishiwara Kanji, a man who became famous amongst many in the IGA for his lectures arguing the necessity for Japan to liberate China, so that a united East Asia could face the West in what he called the Final War. And hey, if you're interested in Ishiwara, over on my Patreon, I have a 4-part exclusive podcast series about his fascinating life and how he was behind major global events. Oh look, curtains. Psst. Hey you ever hear me talk about some great Pacific War movie or documentary like Pearl Harbor Minute by Minute over on Netflix and feel the urge to watch it for yourself? Uh-oh, you live in Japan, and your Netflix doesn't have it? Must suck to be you.
Sucks to be me right now.
Oh wow, Season 4 of Demon Slayer is out. Oh wait, I can't watch it on Canadian Netflix, but it's over on Japan Netflix? Whatever will I do?
Oh no.
Being blocked from regional content? With private internet access, you too can watch Demon Slayer Season 4 by switching your IP address to Japan.
Yes! Hell yeah!
Why stop with Japan? With private internet access, you can change your IP address to over 84 different countries and every single US state, giving you access to region-restricted content all over the world.
Nice.
Many websites and services like Netflix are only accessible depending on your physical location, but private internet access helps you overcome these restrictions. Think about it. Without private internet access, it's like paying for a TV series and missing out on the latest season. Shots fired, Demon Slayer on Canadian Netflix.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Ever fear people are gonna find your Google searches?
Banzai! Banzai! Banzai!
FBI, open up!
Private internet access makes sure that those Google searches remain a buried secret, as private internet access encrypts your internet access and has a no-logs policy. Think you're safe with the local coffee shop's free Wi-Fi? No, you are certainly not. Private internet access gives you more privacy features than any other software, and real-time protection from malware and trackers, giving you peace of mind knowing those Google searches remain seen by you and you alone. Private internet access has a no-log policy that they've defended in court, which means they are not storing any of your browsing data. Hey, are you like me using different devices under one household? Private internet access is available on all platforms and protects an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. I personally use private internet access to unblock movies and TV series from all across the globe, and I sleep easier writing scripts for my YouTube channel and others knowing my data is secure. Look, this is a no-brainer. Sign up with my link in the description of this video to get 83% off, plus 4 months for free, so it ends up being only around $2 per month. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and 24/7 customer support is available. So don't forget to click www.piavpn.com/The Pacific War Channel, and a big thanks to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. The new warlord over Manchuria, Zhang Xueliang, chose to ally with Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government. One of the first major events he found himself shoved into would be a squabble over the Chinese Eastern Railway with the new Soviet Union. The Soviet and Chinese governments held joint management over the railway line, but the Soviets always managed to grab majority control through some sleazy means.
Great
easy.
In 1929, the Chinese had had enough and they took over the railway line by force. The Soviets began retaliating in July, and this led to small skirmishes, which led to full-on battles. The Soviets invaded Chalai Nor, and then they sailed a small fleet up the Amur and Songhua rivers to invade Lhasa Susu. The Soviets' advance was shockingly fast and effective, forcing the Chinese to sign the Khabarovsk Peace Protocol. The defeat of Zhang Xueliang's forces to the Red Army had not only reasserted Soviet dominance over the Chinese East Railway, it also showcased how weak the Chinese forces were, something the Kwantung officers were observing. The Kwantung Army were shocked how well the Red Army performed. Their old rival was yet again threatening their control over Manchuria. The Japanese military leadership began to obsess over what they called the Manchurian Problem. How could Japan consolidate and extend its influence over Manchuria? At this time, Japan held control over the South Manchurian Railway Company, allowing them to station Kwantung Army forces around it and Japanese colonists within Manchuria. Now, the Kwantung Army were greatly frustrated that Tokyo had not followed up on their assassination plot against Zhang Xueliang, and instead ordered an investigation upon them. After the incident, Tokyo held multiple meetings to discuss what to do about the Manchurian problem, but the results kept being, let's wait another year, frustrating the radical officers in the Kwantung Army. Many in the Kwantung Army believed military occupation of Manchuria was the only means to overcome the threat of Soviet or Chinese nationalist influence. The seizure of Manchuria had been one of Japan's major aims since she had come out of isolation in the later half of the 19th century. Manchuria held natural resources, growing space for her booming population, and was an ideal buffer state between her and the Soviet Union. For Ishiwara, Manchuria represented an economic and industrial base for Japan to prepare for his theorized final war against America. Ishiwara and his like-minded colleague, Colonel Seishiro Itagaki, began devising a plan on how to seize Manchuria. In June of 1929, they began a program of sending Kwantung Army officers into northern Manchuria under the guise it was to perform reconnaissance operations against the Soviet Union, but in reality it was to prepare a full-scale invasion of Manchuria. Kwantung officers were sent to observe and note Zhang Xueliang's garrisons, the terrain, and how long it would take to mobilize any given units in any given places. By the summer of 1930, Ishiwara had formed a plan based on the famous Japanese night attack during the Russo-Japanese War. The Kwantung Army needed to overcome their considerable inferiority in size and equipment. Around Mukden alone, Zhang Xueliang had 20,000 men, equipped with tanks and aircraft. Throughout the rest of Manchuria, Zhang Xueliang could rally another 250,000, while the Kwantung Army could only muster around 10,000 men, consisting of a single integrated division and 6 battalions guarding the railway. They had no aircraft, nor proper mechanized forces, and their artillery was not all that impressive. Ishiwara's answer to this was to combine skillful use of intelligence gathered on the enemy and intense training to perfect assault techniques necessary so that when the time came, they could produce surprise, speed, and effective concentration of force. Ishiwara would wager everything on dealing a crushing blow at the center of Zhang Xueliang's military strength, the Peitaying barracks at Mukden. Its fall would reduce the enemy's morale, giving the Kwantung Army the psychological momentum it would need to subdue the Chinese forces in the surrounding areas. Yet even with all of this, it would not be enough. Thus Ishiwara also met with Lieutenant Colonel Kanda Masatane of the Korea Army for assurances they would join in if the time came. But how would they justify an invasion? Ishiwara and Itagaki chose to perform a false flag operation. They would sabotage a railway section near Liaoqiao Lake, just 800 meters away from their first objective, the Peitaying barracks. They would simply blow up some tracks and then blame it on the local Chinese troops. Ishiwara spent 1929 to 1931 lecturing the army and attending meetings with the general staff, arguing the Manchurian problem needed to be dealt with via force. However, Tokyo argued the time was not ripe for such things, and that national reconstruction must first be undertaken. The Army HQ in Tokyo agreed Manchuria was vital to the defense against the USSR, but they only sought to control southern Manchuria via the railway and had no ambitions to take the north.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
In June of 1931, Ishiwara argued the seizure of Manchuria had to occur immediately because the Soviet Union's 5-year plan was in mid-course. The United States, Britain, and France had yet to overcome their financial crisis. The League of Nations was obviously powerless.
Or else.
Or else what?
Or else we will be very, very angry with you. And we will write you a letter telling you how angry we are.
And lastly, the Chinese nationalists had yet to fully unify their efforts north of the Great Wall. But the top brass told them they would need to postpone such ideas until at least another year while they negotiated with the Chinese and tried to rally foreign support for their case in Manchuria. Ishiwara and Itagaki were outraged by the army leadership's foot-dragging on the issue. They returned to Manchuria in July of 1931 and they found out one of their secret reconnaissance groups in northern Manchuria had a man missing. One Captain Nakamura Shintaro. Rumors emerged that he had been murdered by Chinese soldiers. On top of this, the past several months saw a dramatic increase in riots, killings, and strikes against Japanese civilians within Manchuria. The Nakamura incident simply added another issue to many others, and now Ishiwara wanted to exploit it as a suitable pretext for an invasion. Ishiwara issued orders to dispatch an armored train with a mixed regiment of infantry and artillery to force the Chinese military authorities at Mukden to lend assistance in the investigation of Nakamura's disappearance. However, Central HQ blocked the train's departure at the very last minute, and a telegram from Tokyo came in specifically ordering the Kwantung Army not to use the Nakamura incident as a means to force a solution to the Manchurian problem.
Just stop. Just stop it.
This was the last straw for Ishiwara. He and his followers would go through with their plan without permission from high command.
We ride together. We die together. Bad boys for life.
Alongside the Nakamura situation, another one was boiling. Colonel Ishiwara Kanji was involved in a scheme to use the warlord Yan Qixan to attack Zhang Xueliang. This was drawing unwanted attention and lessening the effectiveness of the Nakamura incident. Thus, Ishiwara quickly quelled the plots. Rumors began circulating in Tokyo that the Kwantung Army was about to retaliate against the Chinese because of the Nakamura situation. This prompted War Minister General Minami to send Major General Yoshichi Tatikawa to Mukden to warn the Kwantung Army officers to stop any plans to do so. Ishiwara was alerted of his arrival, and he sent panicked telegrams to his followers stating this: "Plot exposed. Act before Tatikawa's arrival." Thus, the launch date of September the 28th was pushed for the 18th. Itagaki personally intercepted Tatikawa's train and invited him for tea, sake, and sent him to bed with a geisha on the night of the 18th. On September the 18th of 1931, First Lieutenant Sumuri Kawamoto of the Independent Garrison Unit of the 29th Infantry Regiment planted bombs along the tracks near Liaotaokao. At 10:20 p.m., they exploded, doing only minor damage to 1.5 meters of track on the site. The damage was so minor, a train actually passed over the tracks without difficulty just 10 minutes later. Ishiwara, Itagaki, and their followers quickly announced the explosion to be a Chinese atrocity and mobilized the Kwantung Army. Itagaki ordered the Independent Garrison Force and 29th Infantry Regiment to storm the Peitaying barracks. Battalion Commander Shimamoto was awakened by orders via telephone, and he quickly dispatched the 1st Ono and 4th Takahashi companies from Mukden, the 2nd Kawakami Company at Fushen, to advance to Liaotaokao. At 10:40 p.m., the 29th Regiment Commander, Hirata, got a call from Shimamoto, who ordered him to get his regiment into emergency formation and to storm the Peitaying barracks. Two secretly hidden artillery pieces began to bombard the Peitaying barracks as 500 Japanese stormed the 7,000-strong Chinese garrison. Despite being outnumbered 14-1, the Japanese destroyed Zhang Xueliang's small air force, routed the Chinese, and occupied the Peitaying barracks by 11 p.m., all at the cost of 500 Chinese lives and allegedly only 2 Japanese. A major reason the Japanese had an easy way of it was because Zhang Xueliang ordered his men to store away their weapons and to not put up a fight against the Japanese if they invaded. Zhang Xueliang and Chiang Kai-shek were both in Beijing at this time, and they knew they could not initiate an offensive war against such a strong foreign country. They were instead hoping the League of Nations would intervene as pertaining to the Kellogg-Briand Pact of 1928. But later on, Chiang Kai-shek would find America too wrapped up in its depression back home, Britain indifferent, and other nations without enough reason to risk anything in the Far East.
Bad news.
What? Oh no! Anyway, last week...
An hour after the attack, Ishiwara began urging the recently arrived commander-in-chief for the Kwantung Army, General Shigeru Honjo, to order reinforcements to help seize all of Mukden. Honjo's first reaction was to hesitate, but Ishiwara assured him there was significant enemy provocation. Thus he ordered additional units to enter the combat and seize all of Mukden. Historians ever since have had a hard time figuring out exactly what Honjo knew of the invasion plot, and it seems likely he knew some of it, but not the entire plan, leading him to be very cautious in his actions for the next few weeks. The next few days would see Honjo trying to order the forces to localize the incident, but Ishiwara and Itagaki relentlessly pushed all forces to stick to the secret plan they had all trained for. The speed and decisiveness was not only too much for the Chinese, it left Honjo powerless to alter its course. Famously, when one colleague asked Itagaki what to do in response to the cease and desist orders coming from Honjo, Itagaki responded, "Never mind, Honjo, it's Ishiwara's war." Official orders from Tokyo came about the next day, specifically opposing the expansion of hostilities, but Ishiwara and Itagaki had come too far to stop now. They began persuading Honjo to telegram the general staff to ask for reinforcements and freedom of action, to pursue actively the security and order of all Manchuria. But secretly, they also dispatched military agents to Kirin to foment civil disturbances in the city to make it seem like 900 Japanese residents' lives and property were endangered. When reports came to Honjo of this, Ishiwara urged him to deploy the main Kwantung Army force to Kirin to protect them and ask the Korea Army for assistance. Honjo hesitated again, prompting Ishiwara to threaten his resignation on the 20th, pushing his radical followers to do the very same. Under immense pressure, Honjo caved in to their demands. Despite all of the pressure placed on Honjo, I would note, most historians agree Honjo was on board with most of this and was simply making things look like he was being pressured to do so in case things went badly. The attack on Kirin was carried out with incredible speed. Ishiwara ordered the 2nd Division of General Taimonjiro to assault the city by rail, leaving Mukden virtually unguarded. Daimon entered Kirin without firing a single shot, and he forced the local Chinese military commander to proclaim the independence of the province from Zhang Xueliang. Hours later, the Korea Army responded to the request for help, and on the 21st, they were advancing into Manchuria. The invasion had begun.
Well, alright, let's go over everything we've now just learnt. Kanji Ishiwara devised a plan to seize control over Manchuria to prepare for his theorized final war. The Imperial Japanese Army leadership failed to keep their junior officers in line. Now the Mukden Incident has led to a full-scale invasion of Manchuria. Really hoped you liked this episode, and please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and tell us in the comments down below what you want to hear more about in the future. This has been the Pacific War Channel, over and out.